This is Jonathan St. James, and you're listening to The Truth is Still Straight podcast. All right, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, or good evening, or happy new year, depending on what time of the year that you are watching this. This is your host, Jonathan St. James, along with Jim.
Hey.
Y'all there, Jim? Y'all good?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Yeah, so today it's just the two of us. What's going on here? What's going on in the world? I watched, what is that? Black Widow?
You did?
Yeah, I watched it over the weekend. It was okay. To be honest, I don't know what the timeline was. It seemed to be like maybe Civil War, I think.
Yeah, it's after Civil War and before Infinity War. It was between that time.
Yeah, so it was interesting to me that so I was having a hard time following because I wasn't aware. I hadn't researched the movie, but it was okay. The fighting was all right. I mean, not really one of my favorite Marvel movies, but it was definitely, I didn't regret watching it. So that was a plus. I tried to watch A Quiet Place 2. I had problems with that because I didn't find myself really getting into it just seemed too much of like the first one. So I just didn't have any interest in it. So that was just pretty much with that. So I don't know if you've seen A Quiet Place, but
That's A Quiet Place.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think what's going on. What else is going on? Looks like the Phoenix Suns probably going to win the NBA championship. Not that I really care, but that's what's going on in the world. Let's see what else is happening. Oh, Team USA lost.
So which one, the basketball?
Yeah.
To
Nigeria.
Oh my God.
I'm like, this is ridiculous. How does that?
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Are you serious?
That's amazing.
Oh my God.
That is all I can say is that is amazing. Yeah, because I think no one was expecting that to happen,
I wasn't.
especially since they had Kevin Durant, people like Kevin Durant. I can't remember all the people who's on there. I know Kevin Durant is Jason Tatum. I'm not 100% sure of all who's on there, but to be honest, I mean, it feels like when the old Team USA's that lost against like teams like Puerto Rico and stuff like that, it just had that kind of feel to it. So, I don't know where they're really going to go with this. I mean, I think they will most likely regroup. So I think they have a good chance to win the gold, but we'll see.
I hope so.
See what happens with that. Go ahead.
I'll tell you the last time, the year that they lost, or they went bronze or something like that, or they didn't get any medals or something like that. I know they vowed not to let that happen again. I hope that they don't, renege on that.
Yeah, that would be, first of all, that would be pretty embarrassing, first and foremost. So that would be pretty embarrassing for them to experience that once again. Well, we'll see what happens. To be honest, I haven't really been following the NBA like that because it's, a lot of people injured. I'm a Boston Celtics fan, and they've definitely been disappointing this season. So it is what it is. Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. Enough of this chit chat, as Antonio Banderas said in Assassins, enough chit chat. So, yeah. Oh, by the way, so what's going on with us? July 4th happened. That was fun. Last Sunday, right? I didn't, I didn't really get to see fireworks. I didn't bust any fireworks. So, Yeah. All right. So let's get into this relationship topic. I it was just I wanted to bring that up, but it was boring. Not much going on. All right, let's talk about the relationship topics for today. And today's topic will be why men and women can't get along. So sad. So sad. That's a very serious thing. Why men and women can't get along. You would think with all the education, with all the self-help, with all of the advice that you have out there, with all of the books, talk shows, TV shows, everything that could educate you on how to be better in a relationship, people would actually be better in a relationship. But I find the problem here is one of many. And that is what's keeping people from really finding happiness with one another. I think the building a foundation is just very difficult in this day and age because people expect many things to occur with little effort involved from both sides. So let's start there. Um, I want to talk about what it is that is keeping people from men and women from getting along. And I think the first thing, and we've said this on several podcasts that we've had, and we've talked about communication. And with communication, it's the socializing with communication. And I find that men and women, because of a lot of things such as technology, the life distractions, I would say that men and women don't naturally communicate. When we see each other, if we don't have a similar interest in which we engage in one another, men are not engaging with women, and women are certainly not engaging with men. So we're off to one. It's like the old days when they used to have the dances in the elementary schools and junior high schools where boys would be on one side and girls would be on the other side. And it's pretty much like that now. So here's the problem with that, with the communication is we know if you're not communicating with me and I'm not communicating with you, man and woman, who's communicating with women? Who? Sharks, right? The players, the guys that are just out to get buns, use women, abuse women, they out to get. So they're going to go after all the women. There was I think Kevin Samuels, Fresh and Fit, all these guys, they have this stat that says that in society in America, mostly, that 20% of the men are sleeping with, I think they said 80%, no, 20%. I forget how it worked out. Well, it's 20% of the men are sleeping with the majority of the women. I forget what the percentage of the women is, but it's definitely the majority of the women. So that means pretty much 80% of men are just pretty much to themselves, are not in relationships, and they're not socializing. So I guess, Jim, the question to you is, in socializing, what do you see as some of the hindrances that men and women have in basic socialization? Do you see anything that sticks out to you um, as a problem that men and women have, and why they're not talking, just not necessarily in romantic terms, but just in a general term where you meet someone and you befriend them, or you have an open relationship where it leads to a relationship. Do you see any difficulties specifically in the socialization at all?
I do. From my point of view, is most people meet face to face, but then they continue the conversation through messaging, stuff like that. Social media, things like that, and that type of upkeep is kind of different into that gray area because you are while you're trying to keep up with that relationship or trying to start something from there, you're doing something else. You don't devote your full attention to what you're doing when you're talking to that person in a relationship. So things can get lost in translation. You might have skipped something. The person might have lost a signal, stuff like that. Um, so it technology does do have a hiccup, and it could be misconstrued or misinterpreted as something sinister or something that is not intended what it meant to be at all. And it could be clarified if you're speaking face to face mostly. You could use mostly visual cues, tone of voice, sarcasms per se, stuff like that, to try to get to engage a person. It's taking it offline is good for maybe 5-10 minutes. Good morning, good night, but to have a lengthy conversation in that sorts to try to create time for that person when probably you can't devote your full attention to that type of conversation really diverts and really just causes I won't say tense, but like an awkward situation where that something else is going on, but you don't know what it is, and then your imagination starts running wild. And that's the problem with most people, is that imagination starts running wild. So that's one of the disconnects I've seen. The second one mostly is groupthink. Groupthink. A lot of people have this hive mind mentality. It's great to seek advice or recommendations, but you have to get it from more than one source and one type of group of people, and people always going back to the same well that's probably dry. And the type of philosophy just doesn't gel very well, or they probably saw something online, which we call a meme, and people take that to heart. Like, you know, go figure. It might not even apply to them, but they, saw the meme and they think it's cool and they make it apply to them. And it's just, that's just like the two major things I've seen that's part of the problem with relationships, and like, or even starting one and conversing with people.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot of, like you said, this group thinking, social media, stuff like that. And I think social media plays a big dysfunction in relationships because, one, a lot of people are deciding whether they want to talk to someone on social media based on what their social media looks like. If you watch the Fresh and Fit podcast, a lot of times they have this thing called smash or pass. I think it is smash or pass. And they go through, and these are volunteers, these guys, they volunteer their Instagram accounts. And then the women that are on these podcasts, they decide if they're going to be friends with the guy or smash or whatever. So I find that a lot of times these women base their interests on men based solely on what their Instagram account looks like. So here's the problem with that. So when you look at a perfect example, HGTV, right? They sell these homes, and a lot of these people, they set up their homes to be sold. They do this thing called staging. So you stage your house so it looks nice for someone to buy. But so if you do it right, you say, okay, that's nice, but let me get a inspector. And then you have someone that inspects the home, make sure that there's no problems with the house. That's usually how it's done. You get a home inspector, you pay that person, you check it out, and then the person comes back with their report. If there are things that need to be done, you ask the homeowner if they can fix these things before you agree to buy the home. They'll say yes, and then you move to proceed to get the home, or they'll say, I'm not doing it. And if it's a big enough issue, then you move on from the person. So that's the same thing with Instagram or Facebook or whatever. These are presentations. And if you're going off the presentation and not really investigating the person that is behind these stagings with photos and things like that, then you probably going to be in for a disappointment down the road when you find out that the person is nothing like the staging. And I think that's what people need to understand, is that social media has allowed people to manipulate society in portraying an image that is more positive than reality, or not reality at all, depending on the resource of the person because now with technology, you can present anything as legitimate and it isn't. So I think you have to be careful, I mean, they had a whole thing about Bow Wow pretending that he had a jet, and come to find out that was some photo from a website of a company. So it goes to show you, in this day of social media, you can't go by what people are projecting there. You have to check it out. And if you're not socializing, you're subjecting yourself to be disappointed because you're going to meet somebody based on an appearance, and then you don't bother to really investigate who the person is, and then you're up for a big disappointment in the end. So I think social media has played a big problem, a big challenge in how men and women interact with each other, because now you'll see people and they'll say something like, "Can I have your Instagram or Snapchat or whatever it is?" And this is how they establish relationships. But it's so impersonal, and it creates problems because with the impersonal lifestyle of social media, also becomes the downside of social media, which is online bullying. So you tend to have people that are more confrontational online than they are in person, if that makes sense. So when you get into this online, when you get into this social media relationship with someone, social media driven, you can find also that you're communicating not through phone, through text messaging, uh, uh video chat, instant messenger. I mean, not instant messenger. That's WhatsApp. You have WhatsApp, then you have Facebook Messenger, uh, with DMs and stuff like that. And you can find the interaction between men and women to be extremely harsh because we have created this society that people like to be extremely confrontational online, social media. If you go on social media, just have a disagreement with what the masses are promoting, and you'll find out very quickly how fast you can get attacked by people who disagree with you. And that's the nature of people that live in the social media realm, that when it comes to disagreements, it can become very harsh. And I've seen it. I've experienced it in my life. I probably have myself been guilty of it at times. So yeah. So just, and I'm not even talking about romance. I'm just talking about general relationships between people. It can become very harsh because it's not intimate. We often create intimacy from social media, but it truly it's not intimate at all. It's the opposite of intimacy. Although we've created relationships within the realm, it truly is not intimate because it's your reaction to what people are saying is interpretational on how you read something. So if I send you a message, I may not mean anything by it, but you interpret it a different way, and now you're upset because it feels like it's rude. And that's what people don't understand. And we live in a world where no one wants to clarify anything. We just jump into conclusions and pretty much running with that, and worsening things by creating conflicts instead of just checking and finding out what someone means. We just kind of jump on them and just create conflict, and sometimes it's irreparable damage. So within that aspect, do you agree with that? Is that something that makes sense that I'm bringing up? In terms of
Yes, yes.
so
For me, online, the building for the online part for this part anyway, and like again, long is seeking validation from people you don't know. Like you don't know a majority of these people online. Why you're running to seek validation from them in your decisions and for stuff like that? What you need to do is internally to look at yourself on why you made these decisions, because you made these decisions, not online. So you shouldn't going back to these people and just saying, "Oh, well, this happened, that's happened," and am I wrong? And seeking other people's advice that don't know you, don't really don't care about you, and it's just like, yeah, whatever, just get off my timeline or something of the sort. Um, the bullying part is the part that online has no consequences for it. You know, if you just get caught bullying, you just create a ghost account, fake account, or act like you from Cybertron and get bots, Autobots, Decepticons on the person, and just do that instead. It has become a way of you can do things from multiple angles, and there's minimal to no consequences.
Yeah, and I like what you said there, because the problem with social media based relationships is the problem. Well, one of the problems I would say is we most of us are clout chasing on there. So most people, social media, Instagram, they're trying to get followers, trying to go viral. So it can create a false atmosphere, a false sense of security. And it could also create coarseness in personal relationships with people, because at some point, if you become very popular, a person can become a number on there. So at one point where you have an intimate relationship with someone, that intimacy can become evaporated into the universe of clout. So the more famous you get, the less focus you pay attention to individuals. And I've seen it. I've had relationships with people, and they've grown on social media, and all of a sudden they don't have time for you. They don't want to be bothered. They're busy, whatever the situation is, because social media offers financial incentives, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, places like that. So when you have those people and they are growing, their social media presence grows, that can have a big effect on the way people interact with each other. So I'm trying to think of any other discussions in terms of socializing, but I think in terms of socializing, I'm going to say the next thing that I want to talk about is respect for boundaries. Respect for boundaries. And I want to bring that up because I think the issue in because social media is so invasive in terms of you can peer into people's private lives, I think that also carries into offline. When you have a relationship with someone, how people carry themselves in this day and age on social media, they have begun to conduct themselves the same way offline, because the branches in relationships from social media and technology to people's lives are intertwined and interwoven. So a lot of times what people do on Facebook, they do in real life, and it sort of carries over. I remember back in the day, Jim, you and I, we're internet pioneers for the most part, with our old school days of chatting and stuff like that. So how it used to be. You used to have the online persona, and then you got offline and you went back to your regular life. So now what's happening is people have turned into these characters that they've created. So now the lines between online and offline they're attached, they're connected, because now people are acting like their online personality offline. So I see a lot of that. And that can also come into play when you talk about respecting boundaries. And I think when we talk about respecting boundaries, that is a problem that men and women seem to be having a lot. So I want to get into talking more about these boundaries and what does that mean, respect for boundaries. So when the way that we talk to each other depends on how we respect people in general, but the way that we talk to the opposite sex also depends on how we see the relationship between men and women. And a lot of times it's a personal choice, right? But in this day and age, social media, going back to that, plays a big part in perception of how men and women should treat each other. We have the Kevin Samuels dynamic, where you have people that believe that they're high value, whether it's a man, high value woman. You'll see a lot of these women, they call into the show and they're talking to Kevin, and then he'll ask them a question like, so what do you want? And then they'll say, oh, I'm looking for a high value man. And it's a perfect example. So a woman called, I guess it was this show last night. I should have actually played it, but on the show, he asked her a question, and then in the question was what was her, his usual the age,
Line of questioning, yeah, line of
weight,
questioning.
dress size. So she came with the age, right? I think she was like 29 or something like that. And then he asked her what your dress size was, and he said dress size small. So he asked her what the weight was, and then she said 180.
Lies.
So
Why are you lying?
that turned into a big conflict because Kevin was like, "Why are you sitting here lying to me?" Because you, and she was 5'2". So he said, "There's no way you could be 5'2" and be 180 and wear a size 4. So she should like 2'4". Now, the weird thing, the end of this conversation ended that she had significant weight loss where she was 300 pounds. So she had lost like 120 pounds. I'm not sure if she did surgery or not. But the point that he was trying to make with her is that you're looking over average. And he said, you're cute, but you're still average. You're average out. You're an average woman, and you're looking for this high value man that you really don't deserve at this point in time. I mean, that's what he was basing it on. You're at 5'2" and 180. He said, you're heavier than a man at your size, at your height. So if you have a man that's 5'2", which, I feel sorry for that guy, but if you have most men are not 180 pounds at 5'2", or even at 5'4", or even at 5'6". Most men are not that weight. So for her to be that weight, he explained, you're being unfair because you're looking past the men that are out there and you're looking for this high quality, high value man, and you feel like you're entitled to get it. So that's really the point that I'm making, how respect is for boundaries and is socially driven by people who have this ideology based on what people promote on YouTube and Twitter and Facebook, where they tell people, think like this. This is how you should think about men. This is how you should think about women. So when men and women, because we're driven now by social media and the internet, when men and women meet, they talk to each other based on the ideology of social media, which is, as we know, is very adversarial, extremely. No matter how valid a statement I can put on social media, I can bet any dollar that exists in the world that someone will have something wrong with what I said, because that's just the society that we live in. People feel like they have to agree. Somebody has to agree, and they have to comment on their disagreement. So last week we did the show and we had the discussion about the women getting the surgery, right?
Right, yeah.
So I had someone who decided they wanted to make a big comment about that and decided to go on length to describe the disagreement. But here's the thing. Before I spoke about this, I did research on it. I interviewed several people. So it was interesting how the woman that sent me the message disagreeing with me disregarded any information that I had. It was like, forget how many people I could have talked to 1,000 people. I've talked to the control number for this conversation was about 400 women. Oh, wow. And we talked about that. Some of the women did the surgery themselves. Some of the women knew women who did the surgery themselves. So it was a discussion about those things. But because this is what social media has driven us to, she had no regard to what I knew and sort of just basically was discrediting what I said and said, well, that's not the case for all women. Of course, nothing is the case for anyone. What in life is really 100% when we're talking about people? So this is where we're at. So that's when I'm talking about respect for boundaries, because you could feel a certain way about something, but you don't know how I came to the conclusion. So instead of coming and saying, well, how did you get to that? What made you get to this point? How did you get to that point? You already started attacking my point of view based on the information that I received from the discussions that I've had with about 400 women, give or take a couple. I didn't keep the exact, but I went pretty far with this. This is not something that I just spoke to one person. This is actually a conversation I've been having for many years now. I just talked about this because it kind of became a sort of to the front of seeing this happen with certain kind of women, that now I just wanted to bring it up and talk about it, because now I'm seeing it in different kind of women. Before, it was a certain type of woman that I saw would do these certain type of surgeries. And now it turned into, okay, now here's this another type of woman that's added to the dynamic of having this body altering surgery. So I brought it up.
Excellent question. I was like, excellent question.
Sure.
Did she have altering surgery?
Or no, she did not. And it's funny because I don't know if she even knows people who do it at all, or knows a lot. But like I said, this is a culture that we live in this country and pretty much around the world, that everything is confrontational, because that is what society, for those of us who exist in the realm of social media, we have pretty much fallen victim to that type of lifestyle. Most of us are in that lifestyle where it's like, we disagree with something, we got to say, oh, no. And I've actually at times find myself stopping myself from doing that. Like, I literally find myself, this is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But I'm like, you know what? I'm not the stupidity police. So I'm going to let some people be stupid if they want to be stupid. And if I'm in a situation where I want to clarify something that I saw or educate someone, then I'll try to do it in a positive way. But for the most part, I keep myself out of it, because I'll be here all day, every day, just disputing everyone just because there was something that I disagree with. So I've learned not to do that. A lot of times leave people to their vices and be responsible for myself is what I try to do. So, I mean, in terms of the boundaries, do you see how social media plays a part in how people respect boundaries? Because, I mean, I've talked about that once instant, but there are many instances when we talk about personal life, people's individual spaces, respect for vocations, because a lot of people forget that you may have family, children, work, extracurricular activities like church, civic organizations, and people just want to bulldoze right over your vocations. Like, well, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And listen, that you don't go to 0 to 100 that quick. I know Drake says he does that, but the average person should not be doing that to another person, because that's a level of bullying too. So what do you think, Jim? I mean, have you seen what I'm talking about here? Does that sound like I'm blowing smoke on my butt? What's going on?
Nice. More than seen, I lived it. I'm one of the original people of living that. It's unfortunately, it's the clarification of people don't know what's between reality and stuff that you see online. And then secondly is you being out in public and you trying to get out of that online persona, but people are recording you because they know you from online. So it's like, they're trying to keep up appearance. We really don't have to, but they still do it anyway because that's what they're known for. it's like the same thing of being an actor or actress and being typecast. It's just that one role you know for and people identify with and think you should be playing. And this is why I don't agree with um certain roles being have to be played by certain people. Like the whole role of acting is that you are able to portray someone and still be yourself, regardless of affiliation or whatever the role is designed for. If you can act out a role and make people believe that you're that person, that's to me is the core essence of acting, being able to do cues and stuff like that. So for me, it's like, with that type of boundary, people think like, they see Arnold Schwarzenegger, you're gonna be the Terminator for the rest of his life. It's supposed to be that. It's supposed to be Conan. He's supposed to be, stuff like that, or Bruce Willis with Die Hard. Is that what you're trying to say? That fun people do make fun of that online and be like, oh, he was a Terminator. He's just a character. It's not a real person. People are so dumb. Anyway, that type of line is blurred to like basically gone, and that hurts that type of relationships because you're not seeing who the real person is.
Right.
You basically want to see what they portray online. You don't know what that person is, and it's like the whole people honestly who are one way but another way, and to cope with people not accepting who they are when they're outside of it, they turn to like drugs or stuff like that. That's why you see people who can't connect with others turn to that type of treatment because they're not allowing them to be who they are. Society's not allowing them. And that type of issue, a lot of people don't touch on until after the fact when they die, when they commit suicide or something like that. It shouldn't be after when they die that you have to pay attention to somebody who's really looking for help. So that's one thing. Another thing is you with the whole, I don't do conversations when a person is saying I feel. I don't do conversation. I will cut you off and just say like, all right, that's it. I will be a total jerk and cut you off. You cannot come back at me with logic with I feel. Okay, if you're giving facts, figures, telling you speak to this person, or individual people have done it, or if I've been through myself and you're telling me that you feel, what, man, get out of here. Like I'm that is not something I don't entertain or tolerate, or I'm not changing your mind because you already are. To me, your opinion just got invalidated with
Yeah.
with that. Give me something else besides I feel. If that is the crux of your argument, that's the crux of most of these individuals' argument is I feel. If that is your crux, stay off online and delete your account.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. I wanted to talk about this next thing, and it kind of goes with respect for boundaries, but it carries into another topic, and that's knowing when to do certain things, how to conduct yourself when you're, and this is really going back into personal relationships, gearing into romantic relationships between men and women, and that's being overbearing. What does overbearing mean? So overbearing means that you put too much on on the other person, with whether it's insecurity, whether it's with demands, whether it's your desire to just know everything at once, and you're overloading the other person. So that is a problem too, because that is in the part of boundaries, but it also talks about the person, when do you do those things? All right. So I'm going to stretch it over from that being a respect for boundaries, because you need to know that you would want someone to treat you you want to treat the person the way that you would want them to treat you in return. Now, if you are the kind of person that likes an overbearing person, then likes to be overbearing, and you don't mind that, well, I would definitely say find that person that appreciates that. It's very important for you to find the like-minded persons when you talk about relationships, because if you're going to just overload somebody, somebody has to be equipped to be overloaded. I am not capable of dealing with overbearing people. I'm not. I am very laid back. I'm a quiet person. I don't mind answering questions. I don't mind stepping up to the plate, but I don't want someone jumping on my back every day, pointing a finger, interrogating me all the time, especially for something that I had nothing to do with. So if you've had bad relationships and you find yourself liking someone, interested in someone, and it moves in the direction of a relationship, you cannot put the person that you're interested in the same category of the last person that didn't work out with. So I understand that people want to be safe and secure in a relationship with somebody, but the way to do that is not constantly interrogating somebody. So when are you going to do this? Why did you do that? What do you think about this? How do you feel about that? And that creates a difficult in an unbearable situation from the person that's receiving that. I don't want to wake up every day, hey, you gonna cheat on me? Oh, do you want to get married? Oh, what do you think about this? Oh, are you this person? Oh, what's your personality traits? Oh, listen, we can sit down and have a discussion. You got to figure out what you want to know in that discussion, and then you just got to see things through. It's very important, because I'm pretty sure no one wants to start a job where their boss is questioning them every day while they're trying to do the job. So if you're getting in a relationship with somebody, you're trying to build a relationship, no one who's building a relationship wants someone constantly questioning them and asking them to nullify their suspicion of what the person is doing. I can't sit here and every suspicion that you have, every concern, I can't sit up here and quench your thirst or your need to feel okay. If you have to do all of that, it's probably at the point where you're not ready for a relationship, because that is not fair to the person that's interested in you or that you're interested in. That person needs to be able to show you what they're about at a comfortable pace, not waking up every day. This is going to be part 35 of what they got to do to prove that you are that they're worthy to be with you. Like, this is Law and Order. So please. And so that's a discussion that I wanted to have, because to me, that's a true story. I've been there on more than one occasions, and it's just always pushed me away, because I don't want to have to constantly answer for someone else. These are questions that you should ask somebody else, or should have asked somebody else. You can ask me, what are my thoughts, but don't ask me on July 1st, what did I think about A, B, and C? And then on July 15th, you're like, what about A, B, and C all over again? Or pretty much the same roundabout question that you previously asked me. Either you're going to be satisfied and move forward, or you're not and move away. And that's the best way that I could put it. So, Jim, with that being said, what is your experience with that? Have you ever seen that happen? Have you been a part of that ever before?
I have plenty of times been a part of that. And the one thing I told him says, listen, I cannot assure anything for you. You have to do that yourself. I like you said, answering questions, stuff like that is fine. Inquisitive people, and the one thing I do say when you do ask me questions is, if you can't learn from it, don't ask me anything anymore. My whole point of you ask me questions that you want to be educated about something, and if you're unsure about it, I'll give it to the best of my abilities, and then I give it at that. If I have nothing more to offer and you keep pressuring me, it's like, what do you want me to say? That's my opinion. I gave it the first two times you asked, and it has not changed. And I think sometimes people want you to change your answer based upon how many times they ask. It's like, oh, if I keep asking, he'll change. No, no. And that's the problem. I think that's the major problem, is that people expect you to change the answer after they ask so many times. That's not how it works. A firm person, a person who's affirmed will keep on saying, listen, that's it. Nothing's not going to change, accept it or not. And
Yeah.
that's I have to leave it as.
Yeah, I
Uh,
definitely agree with that. Did you have something
Another
else to say?
yeah, there's another thing. The last part with the assurances, with are you gonna cheat on me and stuff like that. I think that individuals should not rush into relationships if you still feel like that. If you get some kind of like trauma shock from and you start doing that, I think, honestly, you should take a step back. And even it says, if you're not comfortable with a relationship based upon your past experiences, I think that if you told somebody that honestly, I think they will not be upset over it because obviously, the other person will see something's wrong. So if you are really truly honest with yourself and just saying, listen, I haven't feel right, something's off, I have not really gone over my past relationship, not the person, but the trauma or something like that. It's fine, just to make the other person aware that they don't have to suffer along through that, just to make you feel better about something that happened. You have to, you know, don't want to say get over it, but you have to put it behind you and start over fresh with somebody. That's the one thing you have to do. You have to start over fresh when you're meeting somebody different. You don't know anything about the person. You're feeling your way around. But if you're going back into old habits or so-called presets, I call them presets, and you can't live your life based on presets because that is going to be your default, and then you're gonna go back to your dysfunction. So
Yeah, definitely. And um people just have to be aware of these things, because if you cannot start from the building the foundation, then definitely you have to question yourself and the ability that you have to move on to another relationship. Absolutely. And that also gave me another idea that I wanted to talk about, and that's the this masculinity that a lot of women have in relationships. So I've had experience where, I guess, maybe in previous relationships that the woman was uh I don't know how to explain it, but try to bring this aggressive attitude to me, and try to establish a relationship based on aggression. And here's the thing, there's some men that do like that, but a lot of men do not like aggressive attitude, aggressive masculinity in a woman. Who wants that? Because how does that transpire into an actual relationship? How does a man function when a woman is trying to push him around all the time and have her way? So, I don't know how that derives. I'm guessing, a lot of men try to get along with women, try to fit in where they can get in. So that may have seeped in to the relationship. But here's the problem: a lot of women that engage in that type of personality are single.
mm-hmm.
So, ladies, if you're single and you have this aggressive masculine type energy where you act like a dude, gotta kind of rethink that if you're not in a happy, committed relationship, because it's probably letting you know there's probably some indication that is not working for you. So you can't jump into people that are like, oh, when you going, I need you to do this. When you going to do that? I'm going to be doing this. Can when can I spend the night at your house? I'm coming next week. I want to stay over where you live at. I want to no, that's not how it works. Because again, this goes back to boundaries. You got to respect people's boundaries, and everything that people do should be based on a decision from a question or a recommendation. It should never be, I want this, when you going to do it? Because that's not you requesting it. That's you insisting. And I don't know many women that like that type of man. What makes women think a man would like that in a woman? So nobody wants to be pushed around. You can't push people around, and you can't impose your will upon people, because freedom of choice, a lot of times in life, along the way, I've tried to invest in people and gambled that they would make the right decision, but had to respect that they made the wrong choice. And with the wrong choice, you ended up being out of favor because they made the wrong choice. But you have to respect that. If someone does something that is moves against you or moves against your favor in a relationship, then you take heed of that. You figure out, well, how do we proceed from there? Sit down and have a discussion about that. If it's satisfactory to you, you move forward. If it's not, you can see if there's any place for compromise. And if there's no place for compromise, then you got to focus on possibly moving on, because no one wants to be pushed around. I don't like it. People that I know don't like it. So I would never push someone around, even if I really wanted something from, even if I was in a relationship and I just totally wanted this person, I would never push my wants and my desires upon someone who's not willing to accept it. And that's really what it all boils down to. You can't force people to do things they don't want to do, and you can't pressure people to do things they feel uncomfortable with. And I find that happens many times. And I don't know if it's an intentional thing. But if somebody brings that to your attention, you have to weigh the merits of that argument. And if you're not weighing the merits of that argument when somebody's bringing that to your attention and clarifying why you're doing what you're doing, then that's a sign of a bigger problem, which is beyond not having a relationship with somebody. I'm going to say that's borderline abuse when you do that to somebody. So you got to figure out how you're going to proceed from there, and maybe get some therapy, or, sit down and talk to somebody and try to change some ways about you. All right, Jim. So you heard what I spent the last several minutes talking about in terms of these masculine ways that women have, and also talking about men and women pushing their agendas, pushing their desires and urges on other people. Now, is there anything you have knowledge about in terms of that?
Yeah, the whole desires and stuff like that is the convolution of other people's thoughts, other people's recommendations that they think that since it worked for them, it'll work for you. Um, Others is just that it's the way it should be. Or others say it's about time, women start acting like they're more in control. In control of what? I don't know. They seem to have control already over what they want to do, how they want to live their life, stuff like that. I mean, to bring that into a man and act like, give them ultimatums, timetables, and stuff like that, and give the excuse, oh, if you can't do it, I know somebody, another man will do it for me. I'm like, go ahead. It's that type of ideology is something that's corroding um men into not really bothering with these women. And yes, they are single. And I get the excuse that, oh well, other men chase me. I was like, so how come you're not with them? Other men do chase you. It's just not the man you want. And you know what they are. Secondly, they don't put up with their bullying ways. They don't put up with it. It's either men who put up with it or men who don't. It's no really in between. Um, and they try to leverage that into manipulating into doing to something that technically you don't want to do. And then they feel, oh well, if I hadn't said to do it, you wouldn't have done it. Of course, because I didn't want to do it in the first place. That's the whole point. But they feel like they get a moral victory or a victory lap or something like that. Sometimes men give it to them just to get them off their case, but we shouldn't be doing things like that just to get somebody off your case. You have to be affirming, saying yes or no. Yeah, and then if no, why? And then if you say come down to a compromise, do something reasonable. Don't make things into it has to be this way or no way at all. That's the first thing that's a turn off. It has to be a particular way. No, it doesn't. Learn to compromise, come to a resolution. There's more than one way to do something. That's what I realized I've learned in life. It's more than one way to do something. It's just that if it's illegal, okay, yeah, of course not. But if it's, minimal risk, everybody benefits, and, it comes to an equitable outcome, yeah, but nobody don't want everybody benefits. It has to be I benefit. Everybody's become self-centered. It's a self-centered society. And that's the problem, man. And it has to be that word, I. There's no we, there's no they, there's no everyone. It's just I. And people gotta get off that word.
Yeah, certainly. And then I wanted to talk about this last thing because I think this is uh, a big misnomer when we talk about relationships. And you'll definitely hear a lot of women say this. And I'm gonna say this is part of self-sabotaging yourself, because you'll hear a lot of women say, "Oh, I'm single by choice." And of course, we know in real life,
My detector test determined that was a lie.
so let's keep it real. When somebody says they're single by choice, that's not true. That's not true at all. It's really single by circumstance. That's really what it boils down to. You haven't found a situation that's ideal for you that you could say, I want to be in a relationship. Most people who want relationships don't choose not to be in it. And that's what a lot of people don't understand, especially, I guess we're going to talk about women on this because men don't really say I'm single by choice. I mean, guys just don't deal with it. Guys are sometimes single by choice and sometimes single because they just don't have access to somebody that they can be with. But you won't usually hear men say that. They may do it. They may choose to be single, and they might be single because they just can't find anyone. It's very difficult for men to meet women than it is for women to meet men. I mean, you could be a woman and you could just fall on somebody and there you go, you're with them. But a guy, a guy can't fall on a woman and be like, I want to be with you. No, he's going to prison after that. And they definitely throwing the book at him. So, I say that's a level of self-sabotage because you have put the mindset that you really think that you're single because you want to be single. And the truth of the matter is you're just not meeting the people that you believe was worth your time. And I think that you have to discover what really is worth your time. And in being worth your time, is that really important for you to actually use that as a litmus test for what kind of man you want to be with? Because I find a lot of times the choices or the wants for a person are unrealistic. The expectations are unrealistic. The standards are unrealistic. So, going back to Kevin Samuels, you hear this woman, 300 pounds, talking about she wants this quality guy. And why would a guy full of all that quality pick you, choose you, want to be with you? So then it goes back to this, oh, I'm single by choice. I choose not to. I've heard that very often, but if you're single by choice, that means you're not really meeting anyone. And, that's self-sabotaging. You got to make yourself available to meet people and not necessarily meet them to just hook up, but meet people to make yourself available to possibly someone being interested in you. If I'm a single guy and I see a single woman who's socially unavailable, why would I approach that woman? Why? And then also it goes to the value that the man sees in a woman. So if a man doesn't see you as valuable to them, they're not going to make all this jump through all these hoops like dogs and dolphins. They're going to fall back. I'm like, well, I'll leave her to someone else because that is not worth the drama. It's not worth the headache. It's not worth the nightmares to deal with somebody who's, you don't see any long-term value in them in terms of relationship, marriage, whatever it is that you plan on doing with a person of the opposite sex. And I think that's what a lot of people need to understand. You got to know, people say know your worth. That's important for you to know your worth, but you also got to know your value, because what you think a perfect example of understanding worth and value. So let's do a country like Dominican Republic. In Dominican Republic, someone could have like 6,000 Dominican pesos, and that's great for there. So you know the worth because you know how much things are worth over there. But the problem with the worth in Dominican Republic is the value in other places versus the worth. I mean, worth is similar to value. I'm just using the two words just to vary what I'm trying to say. But the value of the Dominican peso is nothing against the US dollar. So that's $6,000 or whatever it is, and it's only a few $100 in the US. So somebody's giving you this peso. There's no value in with that here. You know, there's no value. There's a value, there's a worth, it's worth something in Dominican Republic because that's the currency. So the value is not worldwide in other places. You can't go with the Dominican peso and go to a store in London and pay for stuff. Whereas, for example, the US dollar is valued everywhere. I mean, mostly everywhere. You can go, I've been to plenty of countries and they'll take that dollar in a second. You can go to Canada, they'll take your dollar. Costa Rica, they'll take your dollar. Bahamas, as a matter of fact, Bahamas, I don't even think they use their own money over there for the most part. When I was in the Bahamas, they were like, we pretty much use the American dollar. St. Martin, places like that, they all value the US currency. So you can know your worth, but you got to know your value to other people. You got to know whether your value is high to people or it needs improvement. And you know, we all know that the dollar and the peso and all of that, it goes up and down based on the economy and how the economy is turning out. So you got to get your economy together, get that value up versus other people, because you could say, I'm worth a lot. I'm gonna get my crown, you know, I'm wearing my bonnet, whatever it is that you're doing. But if people don't see any value in you, then they are not going to take a chance. They're not going to go out of their way to court you and to establish a relationship with you. So it's very important that you be realistic in your approach to things. No one's single by choice. We're single by circumstance because we haven't found a person suitable for us. We don't choose that. That just kind of the circumstance. We accept it, but you don't choose to say, I don't want to be in relation. You just don't want to be in those relationships. And that's what you got to understand the difference, because I'm pretty sure we've met, in life, when I was single and didn't get in relationship, there were people I wanted to be with. It just didn't work out for me. So and the ones that were available to me, I didn't want those. So I didn't choose those, but the ones that I would have chosen weren't available to me. So that's what we're really talking about, because no one is sitting up here and saying all of the billions of people in the world are not worth being with. It's just you haven't found the person that you can choose to be with, and they're probably not looking for you. Everybody has, when they say everybody has a price, that's similar to that. Everybody has a relationship price for the most part, and we're looking to be with a certain kind of person. Now, when you don't find that person, you would choose not to be with other people, and that's really what it is. So it's a deception that people have when they say that they have they're single by choice, and they
the deception, the betrayal, man, you deceived me.
Exactly. So Jim, so now you just heard what I said about that, and I think this will be our final point for discussion, and we'll kind of wind it down from here. So what is your thought about the whole talk about self-sabotaging with the portion of single by choice?
I'm living proof, man. I'm living proof. Listen, I'm not single by choice, but the problem is I just don't care, and that is a problem. Okay, saying you don't care is not justifying it. It means you still have a problem. Okay, don't get it twisted. I just don't care, and yes, that is a problem. The sad part is that I know it's a problem, and I still don't care, and that's a topic for another. That's another topic for later. But there is no choice. It's a problem. It's an issue. You do have a problem. You do have an issue. Your whole point is that you have to correct it yourself. You have to write your own shit, like you say, build your economy, And it will be, do the minimum. At least people do the minimum. It's not going to kill you to do the minimum. you know Forcing people to come down to your level, to your value of worth, or trying to change the value of somebody else to less, to make your value worth more, is one of the most disgusting things I have seen. I agree with your analogy of knowing your worth, but make sure that you have value back to it, because my worth is, to me, is low, but my value to other people is high. And just because I don't care doesn't mean I get approached, because people see my value is worth more than what I think it is. And that's, to me, that's a shocker. But people see beyond certain things that I look at. And that's what my problems have to, like, bring that up, to level up with that. But your value is different from place to place and based on your circumstance. It's the whole analogy of a woman who is single but has children. Your value, unfortunately, goes low, and you have multiple children with multiple fathers. Your value significantly decreases, even though you think you're worth $5 million. Your value decreases significantly with that type of criteria, and people have their own criteria for something like that. Some people place looks above all. Some people do probably personality, agreeableness, stuff like that. But you can create your own value. And this is what the Chinese do. They create their own value on the yuan, but if they put it out in open market, it's probably worth a lot less than it is. And that's that's partially the sabotage, is that you created your own value as essentially high, but your standards, but your value to other people is worth low, is lower than you think, and then you get offended when you don't get talked to, or you get ignored, or stuff like that, because you're letting your self value, and then know your self worth and add tax. You'd be lucky if you get $5 off of some of the baggage that you may have, or some of the other stuff. It's not all about looks, and that's the problem. People
Right.
think it's about looks with that, and that's not what it is. When I hear, oh, I have a dope personality, I have stuff like that. Okay, how? When you really question with the how, it becomes difficult to answer, because having a dope personality varies from different people. Like, I don't like I don't like smoking weed and stuff like that. So, if a person tells me, oh, I'm dope because I like to smoke weed, that's not the same value as, or that you think that is impressive to another person. So that's one thing. The second thing is, know your audience. Know the person you're speaking to. Know what the value that they have. Basically, when you talk to them, everybody gives himself away over time by talking and actions. So you have to observe and be close about what that worth is. And know the type of person that you're talking to. If it's an older person, who has years of life experience and stuff under their belt, they're gonna see their view kind of differently than from what you do. But the point is that don't try to change that view, because they experienced it. So when you challenge a view um, that they've experienced and stuff like that, that your value goes down, because they know that you haven't experienced anything.
Yeah,
So,
certainly. Certainly.
so know your audience when you speak to people, and when you bring up that value and worth, because experience is value. From last time I checked, experience is value. That's why jobs don't want to hire experienced people, because they don't want to pay for the value. They don't want to pay for it. So, just keep that in mind when you talk to others, especially a older person who has seen more than you have. And lastly, with that, when you talk about bringing your economy up, make sure it's the economy that you are comfortable in providing. So if you are at a set pace and you are trending upward, but it's not quickly enough for somebody else, don't rush what you're starting, and don't on anybody's account, because sometimes it just doesn't turn out the way you want to, and then you're stuck holding the consequences. if it's not shared, or if it's not the value or the ideology is, if it's not shared, it becomes more of a one-sided thing. So you're doing all the work while the other person is looking to see that if it's going to work or not. But while they're seeing, people hedge. If you want to talk about economies, people hedge. That means women will talk to more than one guy will talk to more than one woman, but usually it's mostly the woman talks to more than one guy, from my experience nowadays. And they see that they're into a competition on which guy can do the most for them. And that diminishes the value of the other men who have is valuable, but since they're not within the timeline of what you want, you diminish it because it's not in 10 seconds or less, or 0 to 100 real quick. So you gotta have a diamond that's 1 carat in your hand, but you're looking, you see a person with 2 carats in the bush. You're gonna dump the one in your hand that you have to go for the one in the bush, and then you know what? You don't get the one in the bush. If you say that analogy,
yeah,
because, and I'll tell you why. Because this one person, you're not the only person looking at that bush. There's 10 other people looking in that bush, so you're in the same competition boat as those same 10 people. And do you have what it takes to be the first person to get to the bush? You don't know that, but that's the risk that people take. And when you say about know the value of what you have now, and if it's really worth it, just hold on to it. But don't inflate it or deflate it to make it to justify you doing something else that may not be in your best interest.
that was pretty good. All right, so I think I'm gonna just leave it in there and just close out. I think this is a pretty good discussion. Hopefully it helps. I think the moral of the story today on this episode is really learning how to get along. We spend so many time, so many years, so many moments, so many minutes, hours, days, not getting along with each other, men to women, women to men, and the other variants of relationships. But the point is, like Jim said, is learning how to be comfortable with growing so that you can be suitable for relationship, allowing a relationship to happen, being comfortable with someone else being in your space and your presence, and learning and knowing how to proceed forward. Because the problem is so many people don't realize the one thing that there is no refund on is the time you lose in your life. Once you spend that day, once you spend that hour, that minute, that moment, that year, you can't get it back. There's no loan. There's no refund. There's no time machine that can send you back and change things for you. So you got to make your wisest decisions now, because if you don't, you'll find yourself years down the road wondering what you did with all the time that you didn't invest in for yourself. So when it's all said and done, you got to pay attention to yourself. You got to allow yourself to grow, mature for a relationship if that's what you want. If you want to be single and don't want ever to be in a relationship and you're happy with that, then you don't have to listen to anything that we've said here today. But if you're listening to this conversation, there's probably a desire to be in a relationship here. And LaDonna Marie, what happened? Hey, LaDonna Marie, you came in. We were talking. How's everything? Can you hear us?
I can hear you.
Okay, so
Hey,
Hey, how you doing? How you doing?
We were talking about LaDonna Marie is our angel version of Kevin Samuels, y'all. The godmother, the fairy godmother has came in today. So the topic for discussion, maybe you can share some nuggets of wisdom with our people that's listening. And basically what we were talking about is men and women not getting along, self-sabotaging, a lack of respect for boundary, knowing knowing your worth but not knowing your value, in a sense that you know what you're worth to yourself, but you don't know what other people see in you, and you're not projecting your value to other people. You know what what you deserve, what you want out of life, but you don't know, but other people don't know what you require and what they should be giving to you. They don't know your value to them because they don't see it, because you've hidden it from them for whatever reason. So that's where we were at this part, because we were kind of closing out on that topic. But I wanted you to get in some words of wisdom there that you could share from your perspective and help us out here.
Okay, I mean, this is an interesting topic. I feel like every topic that, you know, we always bring, like we say, we bring life experiences to it. And I want to say, just for like men and women not getting along, and the whole knowing your value and your worth, there's always that quote out there, and I don't know who said it, but it's like, you treat other people how to treat you. You train them how to treat you by the way that you allow them to treat you. So I do believe that once you first come into you know, any type of relationship or any type of, you know, situationship, you're training that person what you bring forward. So if you're coming in not totally showing your value or verbally explaining to them or just living your truth 100%, then in the beginning it's already compromised. Because most time people say you have, like, you know, 90-day time span. People can hide who they are. They won't show you totally who they are. But I believe in the beginning, if we know our self-worth and our value, and that's what we bring into the relationship, then it's the model for the rest of relationship. Mm-hmm. But I can just speak for my standpoint. I always knew my worth, but I know we talked about this in other shows. But I think I got kind of picked on or didn't get a lot of dates because of my standard that I had. And so then I brought my standard down. But then when I brought my standard down, I didn't like the pick of people who I was getting or the people that I was attracting. So I had to decide that I was going to be me, and what I valued most in a relationship and also within me was something that I was going to put forth in the beginning of the conversation. You know, like not you know, like have a list of like all this stuff that you want, but you be the change that you want to see. If you require, you know, love or effective communication, then that means you need to give out communication, and then you need to show love. Not just say, I love you, but what are your actions saying? Like, are you calling to check on me? You know, are you just doing things just because, or are you waiting on the other person? So it's like your actions actually have to speak so much louder than your words, because you can say something and not really mean it, or you can say something and not be fully convinced that that's what it is. So I think that men and women, the reason why they don't get along is because of that communication piece. And then if you have a person in a relationship who's not used to expressing how they feel, if they're not used to showing love, or they hadn't had it shown to them, if they hadn't healed those wounds of things that happened to them before, then it's going to show up, because you're now in a relationship where those things you need to show. One more example of just, you know, knowing your worth. Once you know your worth, you have to be okay with even the person that you thought was going to be the person that you're going to be with might not be the person, because we're two different people coming into one relationship, which, you know, we're supposed to be complete as we come in, but we learn each other as we go. And so, like in the dating process, I think that this has totally been missed in a lot of relationships. We don't date to discover. We just date and say we're in. And what we get is what we deal with. But if that was on something that you didn't want prior to coming into a relationship, why do you now just settle for it because now I'm in the relationship? And so I've learned that in this time, you know, this time around, you know, in my dating process, I'm going to date to discover, because I spent time to understand what it is that I need. You know what I'm saying? What is it that I look for in a person, but I look for those attributes in myself first. Because how can I be willing to say that I want somebody to, do something with me if I'm not willing to do that for LaDonna first? Like, I got to be able to self-care, self-love, do things that I love to do, have myself happy, find things that make me happy. So if I can't do those things first for me, how can I expect another person to come into a relationship when I'm supposed to be 100%? And then you meet me and I expect for you to do all of that for me. And that's where the communication is off.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you said these things because it's sort of in connection to what we were talking about right before you came on. So, I appreciate that because it's always good to get as many perspectives as possible and really just allow people to build on that. I think what people have to understand is everybody has to become suitable. The person that is looking for you has to be suitable. You have to be suitable. But all of those things, they take an effort. And a lot of times people forget the effort. A lot of times people believe that the other person is supposed to bring it and you supposed to get it. But we both have to bring something. We both have to bring something to make it work. That one person can't be doing all the work and the other person is watching the person do all everything. It's it's like two people working on a job and one person is working and the other person is watching the person work. And then it's time for pay and they found out they didn't get a check and someone told them, well, you didn't get a check because you didn't do any work.
You do nothing. Right.
And relationships, when two people are not working to the same goal, is extremely hard to sustain because usually the person doing all the work eventually realizes they're doing all the work and now they become disgruntled in this relationship because the other person is not giving the same energy that they've been giving to that person. And then two, if you're taking and the other person is giving, then there becomes a selfishness after a while because now it's like when the spotlight is shown on you, you don't know how to carry yourself because you've lived so many days, you've lived so many years in selfishness that when now it's time for you to do something that's selfless, that now is a hardship for you because you're not used to doing that. And I find so many people get complacent in not performing in a relationship and not giving back to the person that's giving to them. And I don't necessarily say that that's an intention that people do. Sometimes that's a result of dysfunction. But the point of this show is to explain to you to look at yourself always. So even when someone's doing something to you, look at yourself and see what you're doing in return or what you're doing that's allowing these things to occur if you're letting them. So I think, it's important for us to reflect, to look at things as they're occurring, to see the energy that we're putting into things and how can they be improved if they need improvement. I mean, everything needs improvement in life, So that was basically the purpose of the discussion really, is for people to see things for where they're situated at and make an effort to make things better, for the socializing to change, to not dictate your life by social media. That was the essence of the conversation, as social media has created a dynamic on how we interact with each other. We interact with each other offline the way that we interact with people online. So if you're a cyber bully, most likely you're going to be a cyber bully offline, meaning text messages. You're gonna be doing some weird things that you learn from the social media lifestyle. So I think the issue is there used to be a time when people used to log on and they had their internet personality, and then when they logged off, they went back to themselves. But now people are the same personality that they are online. And those are not usually good representations more times than not. So that was the essence of really the talk that we had today, is getting people to not be these internet bullies, not to be these coarse individuals that feel like they just gotta disagree to disagree and not clarify, not understand, not do those things, but to just simply disagree, because that's the culture that we in now. Everybody feels like they gotta disagree with something and voice their opinion, no matter if the words were valid or not. And if you disagree with somebody, seek clarity. So that was basically the discussion today. And I guess for closeout purposes, with that being said, and hearing the things that I said to you, maybe offer some words of wisdom in regards to that, so we can close out. And then I'll just throw it to Jim, and then we can kind of just close out from there.
Yeah, I mean, everything that you just said was you know what I'm saying, was much needed, because what people have to do is they have to learn to just to be themselves, on and off. And the word that came up when you were talking was, you have to be your authentic self. And I think a lot of people, like you said, a lot of people just want to agree to disagree, and they always want to have some type of argument. But even in the Bible, it says, how can two dwell together if we don't agree? So it's just like, I think that I know, and I mean, I work on myself daily. So when we speak of these things, this is something that I do. I work on myself daily, because I have to make sure that when I'm saying something, or if I'm giving off information or different things, that it checks within my soul, because I check myself first. And so for people that are, like social media and media, period, I think that people need to spend time with themselves doing like self-reflection, because we see like the women and men and different things on pictures. And I was just talking to somebody a few minutes ago, and we were saying, like that one little picture that you see is a snapshot. You don't know the backstory. You don't know what they just went through. You don't know if they was arguing with somebody before they took that picture. Then you cheesing and smiling. All you see is the picture, painted perfect picture, but you don't know the backstory. So I think that we should not aim to be like the people that we see, but we should aim to be more genuine and to ourselves, and to, who we are as a people. Reflect, because we should not be the same person that we were in January now that we are now. Like, you should have grown, shifted, changed, learned some new things about yourself. And so how you fit into society, I think that more of us need to, fit into who we were created to be, not to argue and dispute with someone else, not to find fault in what other people do. Another quote another scripture out of the Bible says that, in all things we should be peaceable, and we should try to be peaceable with everybody. So we should be at peace. And so just in relationships and people in general, we have to self-reflect and be who we were created to be. Look at ourselves instead of, looking at other people to kind of point out the things that they have going on, but use those other fingers to look back at yourself and find out, how can I grow today? What can I do, and how can I be a better member of society? Because social media will have you wrong, because you look at a whole lot of stuff, and like, even I tell my children, just because it's on social media doesn't mean that it's right. Doesn't mean that, it's something that we should do. A lot of, like, right now, it's kind of like anything goes. They have anything, they have everything. They've put so much stuff out there, and all of it is not, accurate, information. Some of it is fake news. Some of it is fake lies. Some of it is just, lies for just the sake of us watching and looking. But if we're going to be our most 100% authentic self, and I know we're not going to be that from day one, but we should grow each day, take baby steps into who you've been created to be, and learn who you are, not in the definition of how someone else perceives you, but know who you are.
I agree with that. And it's so, yes. Listen, this is not scripted. We were exactly talking about those very things earlier. So it's amazing how, like I said, ladies and gentlemen who are watching or listening, we did not have this discussion before this episode. And she came on and said pretty much what we were saying when we talking about this social media online universe. So please, folks, if you don't want to listen to me, listen to LaDon Marie, please. If you don't listen to me, not sound like Jesse Jackson.
Right. I came in this thing like I was like, okay, let me see what the guys gonna be talking about today. So I didn't even know. So I'm in
Right.
here
So
ready for the conversation.
you definitely confirm what we just said, because like I said, we had no discussion about this topic, and we exactly hit that conversation early on in the show when we were talking about, even when to the point of when you talked about a picture, a snapshot, and how you look at that and then you don't see really what's behind it. We spoke exactly on that. So
We
it's
so
just,
into
yeah. So I'm glad that you came on and you shared that. All right, Jim. So now, it's time, for you to drop some knowledge here, and then we'll close out.
come on, Jim.
Yeah, it reminds me of what both of you guys said with the snapshot and the picture. I always say this. Behind all that smile to see a snapshot picture, there's always a true Hollywood story waiting to come out. And I always tell people that, 5-10 years down the road, there's gonna be true Hollywood story, behind the scenes moment. And it never fails. If the whole Will, Jada, Jay-Z, Beyonce illusion shattering of a marriage, of what your goals should be in a relationship, didn't do it for you, or make you realize that it's all made up, I don't know what to tell you. You're gonna have to, like what LaDonna and Jonathan says, look and reflect within yourself. Because if those examples you's going by and you're trying to do a square peg and round hole and try to make that fit, it's not gonna work. You got you gotta reflect, look upon it, and be, for your relationship, be the best version of yourself. That's what the goal is. And I agree with both of them on that part. And they say, if you're not right, and if you feel traumatized by something, it's okay to step back. You don't have to do fools rush in. That's another line also. Don't be a fool. Don't rush in. Take a step back. You may miss out on something. You may have regret. You haven't lived until you have one regret. And you know what? It's fine. But if it's to better yourself and to be the best representation to others of yourself, it's a good goal to have. And I just agree with you guys 100% on that.
Aha.
All right, Jim. Good job. All right, folks. So, we've been here for a while. You heard what we all had to say. I'm about to close it out and let you get on with the rest of your life. Thank you for those who are tuning in on YouTube. Like and subscribe, and also share. For those of you who are anchored, I thank you for listening on there as well. And this is speaking for myself, Jonathan St. James, on behalf of LaDonna Marie and Jim, who I will let them say good night to you guys, or good afternoon, depending on what time you're listening. We appreciate all this love and support that you have given to us. Take care until next time.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Bye, everybody.